Hello fellow YouTubers, it's me Tom Versal here and welcome back to the Music Corner. Today I've just finished listening to a discography that I'd never listened to in full before, and that is Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. I'm actually a really big fan of his now. Just a minute, just going to shut the door. But yeah, sorry about that. I am a big fan of his now. I've collected every single one of his albums except the 2012 Bat Chain Puller re-release because it's so expensive, and I think it's just another version of an album I already have, Shiny Beast Bat Chain Puller, so I don't see point in getting it right now unless I find it for cheap. So it's not on this list. I've not listened to it, but the other version is. So the albums I will be including are all his main ones, but I will also be including the Mirror Man, and that's about the only one that I have to point out. I am including the Mirror Man and Strictly Personal as separate albums. So let's get on with it. If you don't know Captain Beefheart, he has quite the discography, quite a few albums to be honest, and he's an avant-garde musician. Him himself, he isn't really a musician, but he did have a really strange mind and made some of the craziest music you'd ever hear. And he was best pals with Frank Zappa, and if you know him, you know he can be wild, but Beefheart is even wilder. So let's get into it. So, coming in last place, I have Mirror Man. This album, I think, was pretty bad. I'm not really into... no, sorry. I don't really mind long songs. Some of the songs on here can near about 18 minutes. Because it's basically 4 jam sessions. Not on the CD. The CD version has some extra tracks. But the original album is 4 tracks, and it's 4 long tracks. I think it gets a bit dull and boring on these tracks. The actual song Mirror Man is a very good track, but the other ones are just sort of meh. So I think overall this is the worst one. Pretty bland, pretty boring. Not the bonus tracks, they're good, but I just mean the original album. Next up, we have what people consider the worst, Blue Jeans and Moonbeams. I got this one today, and I listened to it today. I didn't actually mind it. I thought it was a really good album. I gave it a 6 out of 10, I gave that a 5 out of 10. I still like all these albums, even these worse ones. I just think I have to rank them, don't I? So, this one, a lot of people hate because it went really, really commercial. Like, it is very commercial. Anyone can listen to this and enjoy it. It's very blues, rock and roll, with a lot of reverb, and Captain Beefheart sings so nicely and calmly on this album. It's brilliant. It's a very calm album. People hate it. I actually really like it. But it comes in this spot because his other albums are better. Next up, I have The Spotlight Kid. Might be shocking to have this album this low. This one's actually a double pack with Cool... is it Cool Spot? Clear Spot. I always think it's Cool Spot, but it's Clear Spot. But still, I'm only using this as The Spotlight Kid. So, The Spotlight Kid, I don't think it's that good. Of course, it's better than the other 2 albums, but I just think it gets a bit overrated. It's his first attempt at commercial music, and some of the songs are a bit commercial, they're a bit boring. Some of them are so weird that it is just bad. Like, not weird in the sense that some later picks on this list are. They're just white jam. It's just an annoying song, in my opinion. But anyway, some key tracks are I'm gonna booglerize you, baby. That one's brilliant. Click Clack, that one's also brilliant. And The Spotlight Kid and When It Blows It Stacks is also awesome. But the best ones are I'm Gonna Booglerize You, Baby and Click Clack. So yeah, decent album, but not my favourite. Still better than the other 2. Next up, this is probably the most controversial pick on this list. Safe as Milk. People sometimes regard this as his best album. A lot of people regard this as his best album. I think it's good, and it has some really good tracks, and you can really get into the blues songs. Very 60s experimental music. He was above the 60s for experimentation is above today for experimentation. I mean, he's dead now, rest in peace, but when he was alive, he was always a weird guy. Yeah, of course, he got Sure Enough and Yes I Do, Zigzag Wanderer, Call on Me, Dropout Boogie. Yeah, every song on here is pretty good, until towards the end it gets a bit boring in my opinion. But still, I think this is still a great album. Just because I'm ranking it this low, because I love the other albums so much, that this one gets ranked low. But it's still a great album, and I can see why putting it as number one, why most people would put it at number one. I'm Glad is, I think, the only Captain Beefheart song that my girlfriend likes, and it is a really good song. Next up, we have Clear Spot. So I've got this one on vinyl. Sorry for not being consistent with having CDs, but some of them I've just got CDs, some of them I've got vinyl. Most bands I'll collect one thing, but for Beefheart I just picked up whatever I found and finished the rest on eBay. So yeah, this one I found in the shop, and it's a really good album in my opinion, and it's produced by Ted Templeton. And it's funny that, because my dog's called Ted, and our surname is Temple, so Ted Temple. But yeah, Ted Templeman. Not did I say Templeton? No, it's Templeman. But yeah, this one's a lot more like Safe as Milk. This one's after Spotlight Kid, and he was still going for a more commercial sound. And yeah, it is more commercial. He does sing a lot of blues songs on here. It's very blues, very rock oriented, with songs like Low Yo-Yo Stuff, Nowadays a Woman's Got a Hitter Man, Too Much Time is a very classic one. Sun Zoom Spark is very good as well. Clear Spot, the title track, is good. And Big Eyed Beans from Venus, he played that at like every gig, I believe. This one a lot of people also consider the best album. These two are often considered the best one. But I think they're great albums, great blues rock albums, but they're not my favourite. So, there you go. Just going to move them over a little bit. Alright, next up, next to ranking Safe as Milk so low, I think this one could even be an even more controversial pick. Unconditionally Guaranteed. This, other than Blue Jeans and Moonbeams, this is seen as his worst album. And I will say the album cover sucks, but I don't see why it's considered so bad. I mean, yes, it's very commercial. Blue Jeans and Moonbeams is even more commercial than this, and that album and this album would have been a great double album, because the songs on there are very relaxing and calming, whereas on here they're a lot more rocking and like you could dance to them in a way, whereas those ones you relax to them. Like Up on the My Oh My, Sugar Bowl, New Electric Ride, I've Got Love on My Mind, Lazy Music, Peaches, you know, every track here is a good one. It's not long as well. It's a pretty short album. I think that's really good. There's Van Vliet, Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart himself. Yeah, very commercial, but it's still a really good album. People hate it because it's commercial, but you don't have to hate it just because it's commercial. I hate commercial music as much as the next guy, but these are really good blues rock albums. Next up, this album I actually really hated when I listened to it the first few times, but listening it again a few times for this ranking video, I realised it's pretty good, and that is Ice Cream for Crow. The only song I liked when I listened to it the first few times was Ice Cream for Crow, the title track, and the rest was sort of meh. But listening to it again, I think this is a really fantastic album. And this is his final album, the last Captain Beefheart album, and his voice had really aged at this point. It was a lot raspier, a lot deeper, and he couldn't do the sort of the voice crack thing that he did. Like every time he'd finish singing, he would do this hiccup, he called it, and he couldn't do that on this album as well. So instead of like going really high pitch at the end of a word, he goes really raspy at the end of a word, and I think it just sounds so cool. That's because of his age, though. So yeah, you got Ice Cream for Crow, The Host, The Ghost, The Most Holio, Semi-Multicoloured Caucasian, sorry. The Past Sure is Tense is brilliant. Ink Mathematics is... the last song, I don't think the last song should have been the last song. I think tracks 11 and 12 should have been swapped. Because I think the 1010th day of the human totem pole, God, it is titles. That's a great closing track, but it's the second to last track. Yeah, really good album, to be honest, and I think it came out 1983 or 1981, something like that. I'd say it came out then. There was nothing like this at the time. Next up, I have Strictly Personal. This one I loved. At first, I thought it was a really good album. It could have been my number one at some point because I just love it. Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart himself, doesn't really like this album much. He likes it. He likes all his albums, I believe. Or liked, I guess I should say. But he just felt the production on here was so 60s because it came out after Safe as Milk. This is the second album. And the producers made it more psychedelic and loud. Some songs on here get really loud and surround you, like Trust Us. The end of Trust Us gets very loud and psychedelic. This is a very good psychedelic album, very trippy, still out there. You know, you could tell where he was going to get more out there. Yeah, so you got songs I Feel Like Acid. It's meant a bit I Feel Like I Said, but he spells it really weirdly, so... Safe as Milk was on here, and it's really good song. I don't know why they didn't put it on the Safe as Milk album, though. Trust Us is probably my favourite song. Son of Mirror Man, Me Man. Good. And then you've got this weird song, Beatle Bones and Smoking Stones, which is sort of where he's making fun of Beatles songs. But it eventually grows into this really good rock song. My sleeve is falling apart a little bit. This I got used at a record shop in Leeds. Yeah, very good album and very underrated. Because if you watch any documentaries, they usually go Safe as Milk and then skip straight to Trout Mask. But no, you're missing out a whole bit of history there. Strictly Personal is a great album. Next up, I have what I think Captain Beefheart called his favourite album, Dock at the Radar Station. This was his second to last album, 1980, and I wasn't expecting much, because at the time I got this album I didn't like Ice Cream for Crow, so I was just expecting something like Ice Cream for Crow, but it's not. This is a really rocking, brilliant album. Hothead is great, Ashtray Heart, A Carrot is as close as a rabbit gets to a diamond, Sue Egypt is good, Brickbats is also good, Dirty Blue Jean, and then the final song, Making Love to a Vampire with a Monkey on My Knee. They're all good songs. I think this is a great album. If you want to get into Captain Beefheart, this might be the best place to start because it's got a lot of the weird avant-gardeness. He's aging a bit, so his voice is still going. It's not as gone as on Ice Cream for Crow, but it is going by this point. And... yes, it's not too commercial, but it's not so far out there like some of the other albums I'm going to be mentioning. But yeah, great album. I can see why Beefheart ranked it his favourite one. Because he had total control over it, I believe he written everything. Well, I say written. I know Beefheart claims that he writes everything, but he really doesn't, does he? He can't play anything except harmonica. So, my number... 3 spot, we have Bat Chain Puller or Shiny Beast Bat Chain Puller, and some people prefer the other version of the album which wasn't released till 2012, but like I haven't heard that. I think that could be even higher, to be honest, if it is better, but at this point I've only heard this version. It's the only version I own, so just consider it this. Shiny Beast Bat Chain Puller is his return to form. He did Spotlight Kid, Clear Spot, Blue Jeans and Moonbeams, Unconditionally Guaranteed. So he did all those songs, and they're a lot more. I was going to say stripped back, but they're not more stripped back. They've got too much production in a way, and they're very normal albums, commercial. This album, he got a new magic band together, and yeah, they just went back to some weird avant-garde stuff. And it's not as avant-garde as some other albums. I think Dock at the Radar Station and Ice Cream for Crow are even more avant-garde than this, and Strictly Personal maybe, but still, this is a weirder album, and it's a great album. Floppy Boot Stomp, Tropical Hot Dog Night, Harry Irene was great, You Know You're the Man. I actually think the song Backchain Puller isn't that good, because it's very repetitive, but I guess it's a unique song. Ode to Alex is a great song, and Suction Prince was good. I don't really remember the closing track, Apes Math, sadly, but I'm sure it's good. I don't remember there being a bad track per se on this album. I just think the actual title track was a bit meh, because it's basically Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart. He went in his car and he turned the windscreen wipers on, and he thought that sounded really good, so he tried getting the drummer and guitarist and all that to play the sounds of his car as a song, and it works as a song. I just think it's a bit boring, but the other songs on the album are great. Now, coming up at number 2 and number 1, I really can't pick. These are both 10 out of 10 albums in my opinion. I really can't pick. They're so hard to rank, so I'm just gonna go with at number 2, Lick My Decals Off Baby. This is his most avant-garde album, his weirdest album, potentially, because number 1 is very weird. And you all know number 1. If you know Captain Beefheart, number 1 is his most famous album, so it's the one you all know, and it's probably my favourite, but I really can't pick between these two. They're almost like a triple album to me, because the first, number 1's going to be a double album, and this is a single album. But I usually listen to them both in conjunction because they're just so good. Yeah, Lick My Decals Off Baby. This is his, believe, 5th album. Fourth album. Yeah, this is his 4th album. And it is so good. It is phenomenal. Very crazy. You could tell it's so musically complex as well. I don't know how this album was made because it's not got a lot about it. Not many people talk about it. It's severely underrated because Trout Mask Replica is number 1. Everyone knows that, alright? I've picked Trout Mask Replica as number 1. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But there's documentaries on that album. There's so much lore and backstory behind that album. But when it gets to this, there's not too much. There's nothing online, and I doubt there's any DVDs. There's nothing really about this album. I don't know how it was written, but it is crazy. Very crazy. Lick My Decals Off Baby, Dr. Dark, I Love You, You Big Dummy, Woe Is a Me Bop, Japan in a Dish Pan. That song is mental. I Wanna Find a Woman That'll Hold My Big Toe Till I Have to Go, Petrified Forest, The Boogie Boogie Woogie, the Smithsonian Institute Blues, Space Age Couple, and Flash Gordon's Ape. There's a few more songs, but they're all mental. This is probably his craziest, most out there album, and it could be number 1. Just reading the tracks then, I want to put it at number 1, but I don't think I can. I just think number 1 edges it ever so slightly because it has more tracks. This album, it goes by very quick when you listen to it. Not in a bad way. It feels the right length. And yeah, it is phenomenal. 10 out of 10 album. And at number 1, Trout Mask Replica. Everyone knows this album. If you're a musician and you want to consider yourself a proper musician, you have to owe it to yourself to listen to this, in my opinion. It's one of those essential albums. You've got not my favourite album of all time. It might be my top 10, but I don't know. But you've got those Dark Side of the Moon, Abbey Road, whichever Led Zeppelin album you want to listen to, Highway to Hell. You've got a load of albums that you have to listen to because they're just musically brilliant. Not Highway to Hell, Back in Black. Highway to Hell is brilliant, but I just think Back in Black is the #1 album. Thriller as well. This is one of those albums where you have to listen to it. This is, I'd say Licking My Decals Off Baby is more crazy, but this one's harder to get into, and this one tests your patience so much. I mean, look at that cover, and listen to the title, Trout Mask Replica. This is a disgustingly beautiful album. Like, it is disgusting, but it is also beautiful. Basically, there's about 28 tracks here. 28 tracks. So it's about 30 tracks. It's a double album. We've got 2 vinyl. And they are so out there. You probably all have heard this. If you're watching this video, you've definitely heard this. But it's just so crazy, so out there, so mental, but so perfect. Once you listen to it once, the music can just sound like a chaotic mess, so schizophrenic. But when you listen to it about 10 times, you hear the melody, you hear the drum beats changing, every instrument playing a different melody, playing a different key, playing a different time signature. There's some guitar parts that are in 5/4, the drum beats are in 7/8, the bass will be playing chords in straight 4/4 or whatever. It's very weird, very, very weird, and it's a brilliant album, 10 out of 10 album. So yeah, let's just recap. Alright, so we have Mirror Man, Blue Jeans and Moonbeams, The Spotlight Kid, Safe as Milk, Clear Spot, Unconditionally Guaranteed, Ice Cream for Crow, Strictly Personal, Doc at the Radar Station, Shiny Beast Back Chain Puller, Lick My Decals Off Baby, and obviously Trout Mask Replica. Just gonna show you the artwork here. Yep. You see, this album, nothing has matched it. Like, in the 60s, this was weird as hell. But the 60s were weird as hell anyway. But still, to this day, 2020's decade, even though we're only in 2021, but still, nothing has matched how weird this is. Even if you get an album like, I forgot what it's called, but the Mersbo one, that's very noisy, and it's just awful. And some Yoko Ono albums, and there's more avant-garde music than this, but nothing has matched the style of this, where it's still blues, it's still rock and roll. You could tell that with the instruments, and you could tell that with some melodies in it, and the very great vocals. But there's nothing as weird as it. It is so strange. The only thing that matches it is Beefheart's other albums. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. I know I've got a very controversial opinion with Beefheart ranking Unconditionally Guaranteed high, ranking Safe as Milk low. I'm sorry about that. Well, I'm not sorry about it, but I'm sorry if you're pissed off, because it is a bit of a weird discography to rank. But there you have it. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Leave your ranking of this discography in the comments below, and stay epic.